Hi, I'm Jenny Shawsweet and I'm the EMEA lead at the B2B Institute, a think tank funded by LinkedIn. Now, we research what works in B2B using large industry-sized data sets. And our mission generally is to uncover the unmet advantage, the competitive edge, the opportunities in B2B to disrupt categories and to find opportunities for growth. Now, today I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the long-term trends that we've defined in our recent publication, 2030 Trends for the Long-Term Marketer. And that's available to download for free from our website, b2binstitute.org. So today I'm going to talk to you about the war on brand. Now, why is this contrarian? So it's contrarian as a point of view because over the last 12 years, we've seen a distinct sea shift to bottom of funnel lead generation for sales. Now that's been the main focus of marketing activities and also budgets. And not surprisingly, it's also been born from a number of changes in the expectations that businesses have from marketing. Now, some of this is because increased data has demanded increased accountability, and also because financial pressures have shortened the expected reaction time or the reaction rate that businesses have imposed on marketers, especially when the market is particularly tight for cash. This also reflects that there are two types of marketing: long and short-term branding and activation. And it was brought to life in Burnett and Field's study of IPA data called The Long and Short of It, that was also replicated for the B2B Institute over the last few years. And in general, what we see is that these two types of marketing run together. The first 6 or so months of brand look like a waste of money. You don't see the kind of results you get from activation or promotional pushes campaign after campaign. But after a longer period, what you see is that brand really starts to behave well. In fact, brand commitment reaps increased rewards, even with consistent investment, just steady investment. A prolonged brand campaign suffers nothing like the drop-off or the decay cycle that you see from promotion. The tough truth that we're facing, however, is that today brand marketers are losing both budget and influence in their own businesses. And what we do know is that if you don't measure effectiveness of something, you certainly don't invest in it. And so the addiction to short-term gains and proof of impact in the short term is really hurting marketing effectiveness and long-term value creation. But what we believe is that brand is one of the greatest investments that a business can make. Convincing your stakeholders is the biggest challenge. Actually, the financial argument for brand building is essential to gaining a favorable brand budget. Brand work is inherently emotional. So even in B2B, it talks to consumer or customer need or role rather than just incentive. And the value of real understanding gained from brand communications is that it pushes significantly more than just single acquisitions one at a time. It actually grows the whole concept of our company in the minds of the consumer. And much of this they build themselves. Now, one of the most important findings from our research is also that it really works. This example is for a credit card company. And what you get to see is that there's significantly more uplift by combining brand and acquisition. So ROI is improved, but also their footprint, their reach in the market is growing. So acquisition is no longer such a heavy lift. In essence, brand makes activation work harder and faster. Now, the most popular mental model in marketing that you'll recognize here is top of funnel and bottom of funnel. But what we want to do is flip the funnel on its side, because what we feel we should be talking about is something more customer centric, in market buyers and out of market buyers. If we look at the time scale, the real long-term time scale of how we nurture and grow accounts to our business, we start to map out something that looks a lot more like what CFOs are looking for. They're looking at in-market buyers, out-of-market buyers, or in a financial terms, current cash flow and future cash flow. Long-term sales nurture future cash flow. Pricing is also the key lever for really improving profitability, and it's certainly the winning one when you want to be able to invest to grow. Now, what we know is that brand influences very heavily what people are willing to pay for a product. We also see that it's also able to improve your price point and make bigger money, which goes straight onto the balance sheet. Strong brand also gives your company choices, the option to diversify while still maintaining a reputation, and importantly, external investment or not. and it makes hiring really, really smart people much easier. For some businesses, that might sound very nice, but for others, those whose assets go up and down in the virtual lift, it is everything for that business. And it's also a great protector, whether legally or emotionally. When you start to own the category, you're also protected within the category. Now in B2C, Burnett and Field found that the optimal balance between brand and activation followed a 60-40 rule, 60% on brand, 40% on activation, short-term sales. But in B2B, we've discovered the balance is a little bit more like 50-50. There was a much bigger preference towards activation as the sales process required more information. But actually in the last few months, Burnett and Field have updated their calculation, and this is based on a very significant change in the sales journey through COVID. It's actually supported by our recent research looking at the new generation of buyers. And what we're seeing is that up to 98% of sales journeys are taking place independently to any contact with the seller. And that means that in isolation due to lockdown, more people are relying on the acceptable choice of a brand in B2B decision making than ever before. Your brand doesn't only get you on the consideration list, but it also earns approval from a broader buying committee and the confidence of procurement, because much of those journeys are now also online. Brand online is increasing the weighted recommendation for high online research and selling sectors to a factor of 75 to around 75 to 25%. Now, as we return to this long and short model, I think the other thing that we should add to the discussion is how we start to see in the short term the effects of brand starting to take hold. There are some big patterns. What we see is faster sales from brand, smoother and frictionless sales, but we also tend to see a really warm impression from sales. The sales teams are able to give us feedback around the intention. It's a very soft measure, but the intention of people coming to the brands is actually that the preference for a brand is much stronger. Now, thank you so much for listening to me today. It's been a very short presentation, but I hope to hear more from you soon.